Welcome to another edition of Progress and Promise. Spring in Florida public schools means one thing: testing season. While the state bureaucracy busies itself figuring out what the next version of the standardized test will be, teachers, parents, and students are gearing up for the test that will provide a snapshot of what they have learned this year and how far they still have to go. So with me today are some folks from one school in Escambia County that has every excuse on paper to not do well, but whose students have been quietly building a culture of success and community inclusion for several years. Oakcrest Elementary School is on Hollywood Avenue. Its campus is behind the crumbling remains of what was Brownsville Middle School, but the message of what the staff there is doing is getting a broader audience. Oakcrest has won national recognition for its positive behavior support program, a behavior modification program that has decreased referrals and discipline problems at the school. Principal Denny Wilson has been asked to speak at several professional development and peer conferences about what is going on at his school. Last year, 5th grade teacher John Herber was named one of People Magazine's Teachers of the Year for the showing in science that his students made on state standardized tests. The school, which was just 19 points away from a B on the state grading scale last year, was given an F on the same scale in 2006. Denny Wilson and Leanne South, the family and community liaison at the school, are here with us today to talk about what's going on at Oakcrest and the lessons that their work could hold for schools throughout our community. Denny, thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate it. I know you're very busy.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Anytime I can talk about Oakcrest, I'm here.
Well, it's a wonderful story, and I'm so glad that we have a little bit of your time that you can share with us. You have been kind of the man about the education world this past school year. You've done a lot of traveling and a lot of speaking at peer conferences to tell the story of Oakcrest. How's that treating you?
It's out of my comfort zone. Public speaking is not what I feel like I do best, but I feel like talking about Oakcrest is good for the school, it's good for the community, and ultimately the students. So that's the main reason I step out of my comfort zone and do it. That's why I'm here today.
Yeah. Well, it'll be easy. Will be easy peasy for you, I promise. Okay. What kind of tell us sort of the highlights of what the message you try to convey to folks who don't know anything about your school or Pensacola or Escambia County at large. What's kind of the message that you want people to take away from your speeches?
I think the main thing that I want people to take away when I talk about Oakcrest is that is the motto that we came up with at the very beginning when I first got there: is every student, every day, whatever it takes. And that means that we will do whatever it takes to make sure that our students are successful. And sometimes that involves maybe doing some things a little different that maybe you wouldn't have to do at every school, but it's required there.
Your background, your professional background, is in social work, and do you think that gave you a different set of tools for the principalship toolbox?
Right. I didn't know that I was going to be a principal.
Yeah, you took kind of a long way around to get there.
And my bachelor's is in social work, and my master's is in marriage and family counseling from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. So it is different background, but it's both of those degrees and experiences I think have allowed me to be successful at Oakcrest.
How are you measuring success? Means different things, especially in a school kind of setting. There's a good grade on a test, there's a good showing on a state standardized test, but the families at Oakcrest have there's a longer row to hoe there than there is at other schools.
Right.
How you and I have talked about how it's important to measure the small victories that you get every day. How did you build that culture with your teachers?
I think part of it is when you go into something and it's new to you, you don't really know everything that has to be done. And I think part of that experience of me learning going in, that just having parents starting to come and feeling welcome was a big step.
Yeah.
And I knew that, you mentioned earlier that the F grade, that was my main task, was not to be an F school anymore. But I've always felt like that if I got the opportunity to work as a principal and I wanted to be in a school that had some challenges, that was what I wanted to do. that I knew that I needed to get the parents involved, and I needed to get people behind a vision and a mission. And so the little things are increased parental involvement, making sure that parents feel welcome. The first measure of success was a huge turnout at our very first open house. And we've continued that, where parents have felt welcome. And it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been fast.
Right.
It took a couple of years to get to the success that you're starting to hear about now. But the little things are just behavior.
Yeah.
When you walk down the halls, that people see that students are actively engaged, that it's there's not chaos, that but there's people engaged and students want to be there.
And
So,
I mean, that is a perception that I think people have maybe of elementary school in general, but elementary schools in certain neighborhoods probably too, that it's just kind of a little bit of madness. But Oakcrest has a really great behavior modification program that you have won a national recognition for now
Right.
for the second year.
Right.
Talk about some of what the PBS model has done for your students.
Well, the PBS model, the Positive Behavior Support program, is we were introduced a couple of years ago and given the opportunity, along with some other schools, to be a pilot school. And now there's many schools that are doing it. But it's really refocusing, and instead of focusing on students that are not making good choices, you make a shift and focus on the students that are making positive choices.
And they earn, like, you have currency, right? Like
We do. We have Eagle Bucks,
Yes.
Eagle Pride Bucks, and they're able to purchase things in a school store.
But you get those for
You get those. You get those
following
for
the rules.
doing. You get those for following the rules. You get those for doing things that you should be doing. Just like any system that we do, that you kind of flood that system in the beginning and
Sure.
reward lots of different things, and then after that you tend to be able to pull back on some of those things and praise and other things that will take place of that. But it's been very successful. We were the first school to be awarded in Escambia County the Gold Award last year, and then 2 years ago, and then this past year, another
got
school,
it in.
Warrington Elementary, joined us in that. And
That's great.
So it really does work, and I think you can tell a difference in those schools that have that system.
And I know that there are similar programs, I think, at Washington High School. Escambia High School has a PBS model that they're making some progress with. So I think that's great. It's giving attention to kids for doing the right thing instead of giving attention to kids who act out. And children want to go with the flow. They want they want that recognition.
Exactly.
What do they get with their Eagle Bucks?
Well, there's lots of different things. I mean, there's lots of our partners donate, little trinkets, little things that that seem, that maybe seem to not have a lot of value for an older student that a little kid would like, and then it becomes challenging to come up with some of those things. We have
That's a good problem.
I do donuts with the principal that students have to earn 50 tickets. I do lunch with the principal that we have a partner with one of the Peter Nowak, one of the McDonald's,
Great.
has helped me with that. So lots of different partners help us come up with the things that that students want to do and earn.
What kind of feedback are you getting from people who hear you when you go out on the speaking circuit? Because I guess it's a circuit now.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're making it sound like I've done it several times.
Several times.
I've been in Nashville, and I've had an opportunity to speak in Oklahoma City. I thought it was going to be a group of about maybe 50 principals, and it ended up being 5,000 people. It was their whole district.
Wow.
So that was that was
I'm
different.
sure you weren't nervous at all. I'm sure you did
very
great.
nervous. But really, to me, I like to talk about that to work in a school is hard. To teach is hard. To me, I view it as a calling. I view it that it's a mission. So that's really what I try to leave people with, that what they do is of great purpose, and it's really worthwhile.
And obviously, for folks who are not maybe familiar with Oakcrest, the kind of profile of the average student, or the profile of your families, what kind of demographics are they like?
Oakcrest is located off W Street and off Fairfield and like you said, on Hollywood Avenue. And it's a neighborhood that I think often is overlooked, and that it's one of those places where there's a lot of challenges. So most of our students come from families that work hard, that try to do the best they can, but have a lot of challenges.
And that is one of the great things about your story, is the way that you've been able to bring those families into the fold and make them feel like the school is their school, because it is their school, and they are a very important part of bringing those kids along for success. And we are going to be joined in a moment by Leanne South, who's going to talk some about how she's able to help make that happen. Stay with us. Thank you for sticking around. We are here talking with some of the folks at Oakcrest Elementary School about the successes that they are having at their school. And Leanne South has now joined Principal Denny Wilson and I. Leanne, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
You are the Family and Community Liaison at the school. That is a super big title. What does that mean exactly?
I spend my time working with our families, our partners in education, volunteers, really kind of filling in when those needs arise, because what we have found out is when a family, or we have a family that may be going through a crisis or having a situation come up, I'm able to drop what I'm doing and stop and try to do what we can to help address those needs.
And tell me what your typical day is like.
Well, usually I'm out meeting kids at breakfast, trying to, there might be some children I'm touching base with that maybe we've had a conversation with the day before, about some needs in the family or things like that, and I might kind of pull them to the side and talk to them, make sure everything's going okay. Sometimes if we have students come in off the bus, they need a coat, they might need a change of clothes and things like that. I'm dealing with that maybe first thing. Always parents that walk in, a lot of new registrations, especially throughout the year. We know those families are in transition, and I need to meet with them or introduce myself to them and see if they have those needs that come up that maybe we could help them address or help them navigate the system, because we know that can be really difficult, and there's so many phone numbers, there's so many agencies, and trying to really make sure that we target in and give them what they need.
And you touched on that, it's a big system, and it can be hard to know who to call or where to go, and at your school, that's you. That's a big job.
Yes, and it's we have so many wonderful agencies in the Escambia County that are reaching out and trying to help, and it's just nice to kind of be that plug where you can help them narrow in, and they're not spending their time on that, and they know exactly where to call than themselves getting frustrated and trying to figure out what to do.
Right, and I know that some of what you do too is working on funding streams, grants, and other kinds of things to supplement things in the school. Talk about some of the United Way grants that you've worked on to get technology in the classroom.
Yes, we started with the kindergarten program, because bottom line, everything comes down to relationships in our world. We all know that. And so we started with a first flight program for our kindergartners, and we wanted to bring these families in. We wanted to establish that relationship, make kindergarten a great positive experience, and help, because I know I have a 19-year-old son, and kindergarten has changed dramatically in those years from what is expected now, and changes almost on a yearly basis sometimes on those expectations, and we need to make sure that we're making our families comfortable and building that relationship and knowing what they're doing. So we started with kindergarten and started with a lending library, sending books home, back and forth. Then we were able to follow those kids into first grade and get Kindles for each classroom, and helping our students learning how to navigate technology. That is a huge thing going forward, because all assessments going forward are all going to be on the computer, and learning how to navigate and being able to have those skills is so important. So
there's no more bubble form?
I know.
All the time I spent learning to bubble in with the #2 pencil is gone.
So all those little tiny things you may not think about that can help improve a child and improve their test score, that's what we want to do, is equip them so they don't have that when they're going into the test, or that worry that, oh my goodness, what do I click on or what do I do?
Right. What do I do? I don't know what this looks like. I've never seen the computer do this before.
Exactly. So that's one thing that we've done, and then we're working on future ideas also on how to take those kids and our other students at all times, and we sit down with our teachers and say, what do you want to do? Let's dream big. Let's talk about what we want to do and go from there. So.
Well, that is very exciting. And those, your first graders now are in their second year of this effort?
This is the first year that they're using the Kindles.
Okay.
Our kindergartners, we started with building those relationships with a lending library where students took books home. And this is our first year with our students actually having Kindles in the classroom for small group instruction, math instruction, that they're utilizing them throughout the day.
That it's really smart, I think, to capitalize on the excitement that a parent has about kindergarten, because everybody, I mean, that's a big deal. I have young children. One will be a kindergartner soon, the other is a second grader, and like that sets the tone for not just the child's experience for school, but for the parent's experience too. And it's very important, I think, for that to be a good feeling, because if you turn a parent off right then, you might not ever get them back, let alone their child.
Right.
Exactly, and if we set our students up for success, which we're trying to do at school every day, and we can hopefully set our parents up for success, and we need to inform them. That's on us. We need to make sure they understand those expectations and what's going on, and making sure we know their name when they walk in the door and that they feel welcome, and go from there. And just, you're building upon that relationship that we want to have in 5th grade when they're leaving us, you know.
Your families need a little more than families at other schools. What are some of the challenging parts of that? I mean, Denny has talked to me about you having to have staff there with a deep emotional well-being because it's hard work, and there are going to be bumps in the road. It's not a job for everyone, and I would imagine a job like yours is even more so not for everyone.
You know, there are needs that our families have. And the way that I always address it, and the way I really see our other teachers address it, is we're kind of like missionaries, and that we're out there trying to figure out those needs for them. I mean, I have families all the time that may be struggling with insurance questions. You know, what has happened with this Medicaid? They've gotten, you know, a 3 or 4 page letter in the mail, and they're not for sure, is that changing? What do I need to do? They're new into town. Who do I go to the doctor? I'm not for sure, you know. So many of those things, and you know, and then there's those times where you have a family come in, and you know, pretty much they have come into town and they may not have anything, and then we can look at 3 or 4 months later where you know, just through wonderful agencies in this town where we've gotten them established, we have their child, you know, in some after-school care, they're working, and you just see that is what you just, those bright spots, and we have so many at Oakcrest, but that's just some of the things that you get to see, and you're going, wow. You know, it's a wonderful,
it pays off.
Yes.
It's good stuff. Because I think, you know, some of your children come from impoverished backgrounds, but that doesn't mean that they can't do everything that any other kindergartner or first grader should be able to do. And that can be a challenging message, and sometimes they start farther behind than their peers do at other schools. But closing the gap is important.
And we don't lower expectations. We have students that are gifted. We have students that are accepted into Brown Barge and go on, and so that's our expectation, that our students can do, and they can. And that, I feel like that's one of the things that I've tried to do as well as part of my journey there at Oakcrest is to be kind of a myth buster about students from poverty and parents that are living in situations that are difficult, because my parents have the same dreams for their kids that I have for my own kids, and Miss South has for hers, and that's for them to do better than we've done, and to have everything that they want open to them. So they just have a few more obstacles. Some of our parents, they work like crazy, but they're one crisis, you know, away from being in serious trouble, and they're working hard, and it doesn't take where we can bounce back. We have resources and other family members that can step in. Sometimes they don't have that, and we try to keep our kids away from having to deal with mobility issues if we can, and doing whatever we can to just create a stable environment so they can be successful.
Well, I mean, elementary school it's definitely not like, certainly when I was in elementary school, a lot more is required of all of our kids now, and that's what they need to be worrying about, what they have to do in the classroom, not all the other stuff. If y'all can help keep the other stuff over here for a little while, that's a good thing. Testing season is going to come up. How do you feel about about your kids for this year? Are we prepped? Are we going to have a good result this year?
Well, I mean, that was kind of the way you opened the show.
Yeah.
You're talking about how things are changing and all the different, we are still bubbling this year, but there are changes coming. There are going to be different expectations, and the expectations always seem to be out there and growing. But the main thing to me is that it's good instruction. It's making sure that students are prepared and that teachers are planned well, and that we are giving them our best effort. And whatever the test is and whatever the standard or the bars raised, we're going to meet it, and we're going to meet that challenge, and our students, we're going to have them as ready as we can have them.
Well, I know that they are going to do the very best that they can. They have a wonderful staff behind them. Thank you all so much for all the work that you do every day over there. And I'm so pleased that you could both come and be with us. That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
And we're just representing a large number of great teachers that are at Oakcrest Elementary, so we appreciate the opportunity to represent them.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. And if you stick around, we'll be right back in just a few minutes. Thanks. Working at Oakcrest Elementary School isn't for everyone, but it's a good thing there are people like Denny Wilson and John Herbert to fill jobs like those. We need more of them if Pensacola is to progress and bring all of her citizens along for the ride. Denny Wilson has been principal at Oakcrest for 8 years. This year, enrollment at the school is up 100 kids from what it was last year, bringing the total to 650. Oakcrest had 400 students in Wilson's first year. When he took over, he had 10 staff openings to fill, and the line wasn't exactly wrapped around the building for the chance to work there. But he called people who had applied at other high-poverty schools and asked them to consider his school on Hollywood Avenue, and kept after it until he got folks he thought were up to the job. My 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers, they're my rock. That group is stable, he says. Many have been there for the duration, or nearly all of his time at Oakcrest, when the school went from a D to a C to an A, and back to a C again, though they were 19 points away from a B last year. He had book training on what it was like to work in a high-poverty school, but he hadn't lived it. And at Oakcrest, 94.5% of the students enrolled are in the free lunch program, the highest percentage of any school in the district, he says. The typical Oakcrest family is headed by an African-American single mom. Sometimes the father is involved in the family's life. Often there's another adult figure, a grandmother or an aunt, who helps that mom. There are 2-parent families at Oakcrest. There are gifted kids there. There are Oakcrest kids who go to Brown Barge Middle School, the district's magnet school for gifted students. And there are kids who need a backpack of food sent home on Friday to help them get through until Monday. There are kids who, during the first cold snap of the year, just as students were to return from Christmas break, were the warmest and most well-fed they'd been in weeks when they got to school. You should see what some of those kids live in, Wilson says. You know, trailers aren't required to have heat. 2 things he's learned about the children in his school and their parents. The children all have the same dreams that their peers at the good schools do, and their parents want what's best for those kids. What sets his families apart, essentially, is that when even one thing goes wrong in their lives, they don't have the resources to bounce back or carry on. When one bill is late, when one job's hours are cut back, when the one person who has served as that family's rock gets sick, or worse, it isn't just a bump in the road for them. It feels like the end of the line. And if we aren't careful, we're going to create a public education system that treats the schools that serve their neighborhoods the same way. If a school fails to perform up to snuff on standardized tests, it gets put in turnaround. It gets a new staff, it gets more oversight, and it has 2 years to get better or face further penalties up to and including state takeover. In 2008, which is 2 years after Oakcrest earned an F, it was a D. In 2 more years, it was a C. By 2011, it was an A school. The new Common Core standards have moved the bar again, and Wilson says if the tests were given today, they'd retain the high C they had last year. Progress at a school like Oakcrest, which, by the way, has a car-crushing facility in its front yard and families who are too poor to afford to pay for a school lunch on a regular basis, is a long road. It takes more than 2 years to move the needle. That doesn't mean it can't be moved. Take the Oakcrest 5th graders from last year. They scored 66% proficiency in science at a school where science proficiency was 12% the first year it was tested. Science teacher John Herbert got much deserved credit for that showing, including being honored by People magazine. But it took 7 years to get to that number. And though Mr. Herber got the award, he is the first to tell you he didn't do it alone. Those fifth graders scored 41% of proficiency in math and 32% proficiency in reading. When they were third graders back in 2011, 40% of them were proficient at math and 40% of them were proficient at reading. They've done well, but they have much, much more to do. The staff at Oakcrest is always hustling. They seek United Way grants to get technology in the classroom. The principal reads books like Carol Dweck's Mindset and watches TED Talks for ideas. They'd like to pursue a Promise Neighborhood grant, a program modeled on the success of the Harlem Children's Zone. The Harlem Children's Zone is a cradle-to-commencement approach to education and community building. It includes a baby college, which is workshops for parents of children under 3, all-day pre-K, extended school hours, health clinics and community centers for students and adults after school, on weekends and in the summer, youth violence prevention, social services such as foster care prevention, and college admission and retention support. Wilson's main message to his staff and his students is that there will be bumps along the way, but those bumps can be overcome, and their zip code does not have to dictate how far they can go. Thanks again for joining us. Be sure to check us out at ProgressPromise.com. Look for our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter at @OurProgressNow. We'll see you next time. Thank you.